Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you'll meet a man who takes people on an all-inclusive cruise down the Amazon with a purpose. We'll explain next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, as I've said many times on the show, my dad's a minister, my brother's a minister, so faith is a big part of my life. And anytime I meet somebody who's just doing something exceptional, I want to bring him on the show. And I can't think of a better person to come on the show right now than Steve Trammell. He's the executive director of Amazon Outreach. Thank you for coming on the show.
Jeff, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I want to go back in time. You were just a local pastor, and you told me just before the show began, you went from local pastor to global pastor.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
Well, I used to be a short-term mission skeptic. As a local pastor, I believed in missions, and I believed we should support and pray. That's part of being a Christian. But I'm like, what difference can you make in a week not speaking the language? Let's just pray and give to missions. And I had an opportunity to go to the Amazon, and it sounded fascinating. You know, you hear about this amazing place. But I talked myself out of it. I was calling my friend to say, hey, don't count on me. And this only happened maybe, I can count on one hand the number of times, but it was audible as you and I speaking right now that the Lord told me, you're trusting in money and not in me. And when my friend answered the phone, I said, hey, I wasn't going to go, but I know I'm going to be disobeying the Lord if I don't. Count me in. And I love the statement, you're one decision away from a totally different life. My heart just broke for the villages as I saw how he could supernaturally use me cross-culturally, making an impact in these villages in a very unique way, because He is using Americans to break down barriers, to bring hope.
Sure.
And I just fell in love with it. And I like to say I left as a local pastor. I came back as a global pastor. New Life Verse declares glory among the nations. And that's what I've been able to live ever since that trip.
Mm. Well, I love it when God puts a number on somebody's heart. At least he didn't tell you to build an ark. So.
Well, we're building a boat now, so I feel a little bit like Noah.
All right, we're going to put the website up on the screen, and as we scroll down the website, I want you to talk about, the Amazon, because people who haven't traveled there, they probably can't even imagine, and video alone doesn't do it justice, I'm imagining.
Absolutely. Most people are fearful. You've got all these movies about piranhas. You can actually swim with piranhas.
Is that right?
Yeah. They're scavengers, not predators.
Sure.
Snakes, bugs, but what really captures people and why people keep coming back are the people. Mm-hmm. They call themselves a forgotten people. They live in deep spiritual and material poverty, and when we come, the names of our boats have hope in them. Mm-hmm. And what we bring is they are not forgotten. We are bringing the hope of that they are cared for, the hope of God, about relationships. We bring medical, dental, eyeglasses. We play with children, play soccer, braid hair, paint fingernails. So just relationally, just loving the villagers and showing the love of God.
Wow. You also are great on camera. We found several videos that you've produced. Let's go ahead and show one about the mission.
The mission of Amazon Outreach is to mobilize churches like yours to assist Brazilian churches in making disciples by sharing the love of Jesus in the Amazon River Basin. We got to do that this week in the village of Boa Sorte. Can't think of a more inappropriate name for a village because they had just experienced 4 of their young people had committed suicide 2 weeks before we arrived. The name Boa Sorte means good luck, and they asked us to speak to this, and we shared with them. Our name of our boat is Linda Esperanza, which means beautiful hope. It couldn't be more appropriately named, as we pointed them away from luck into the hope of Jesus Christ. One of the men I talked to had been freed 2 years earlier from alcoholism, and he had learned to read by reading the Bible. We gave him a study Bible. we connected him with the local pastor who's going to train him as that person of peace in the village. Also, one of the men in men's ministry shared how he also had struggled with depression, and he had turned to Jesus and found hope and strength to endure. And at the end of the men's ministry, they were challenged to stand up for Jesus, and almost every one of those 30 men stood up. Now, we don't know for sure the sincerity, but we do know for sure this: Jesus is the hope of the villages of the Amazon, and we want you to join us in this great mission of God.
All right, Steve, I'm going to ask you to tell the story about your wife, because when God put this on your heart, He did not also put it on your wife's heart. You had to persuade her.
Yeah, that was problematic. I didn't know how we were going to work through this. I actually was so amazed as God broke down my short-term mission skepticism. 2 years later, I'm being asked to lead the whole ministry. And so I went back again. I just was seeking the Lord, because we've been in our church 19 years, had no reason to leave. We were very happy there. And so I was saying, Lord, this is your will, I'll do it, but I just need to know. And my wife was already just not feeling it. And so at the end of that trip, I had this clear sense that the Lord was telling me three things: that He wanted the mission to continue, that He wanted it to flourish, and He was calling me to lead it. The problem was I didn't know how I didn't know how I was going to talk my wife into this. So the Lord in His wisdom didn't give me any words. So I get back home. She asked, "How was your trip?" And I couldn't formulate words, which is rare. And I just started crying. And she said, well, tell me, what are you feeling? And I said, I feel like if I don't do this, something in me will die. And she said, I guess you're going to Amazon. And so the Lord caused me to shut up and just cry for God to touch her heart, to know this wasn't just my imagination, that He truly was leading us in a new direction after almost 20 years of ministry at the same church.
Wow. Well, my hat goes off to your wife. She's a very supportive wife for sure. And you personally go there about 4 times a year, but you were telling me that you have like 30 trips a year?
Yes. Yes, I'm on 4 or 5 typically, but we have many people that love this mission, a lot of volunteers, some of our staff. So yeah, we have about 30. This year, we're actually building a boat so we can do more trips. We're at capacity. Actually, I had to turn trips away because of not having enough boat capacity.
Sure.
So, yes.
And explain to the viewer who might want to go on one of these trips with you that when we call it an all-inclusive trip down the Amazon with a purpose, you're staying on the boat, and the boat you got cooks, and so explain the experience.
Yes, it really is all-inclusive. I mean, everything that the trip costs is all wrapped up, and we have naval certified cooks, laundry. So you'll spend the week, we call the boat the hotel, the restaurant, the mission base. It's the only way to get where we're going. You can't get where we go from here. The only way, there's no roads, there's no airports, you have to go by boat.
Got it.
And so you sleep in hammocks, and there's locking bathrooms and showers. So we have the amenities that we as Americans need just to stay healthy and safe.
Sure.
But you get off that boat and you're in a National Geographic village that's fascinated that you've come all the way halfway around the world with your message of hope, that you're not forgotten.
Wow, that's powerful. I want to talk about your water wells effort, and we've got some video that you produced, and I want you to just kind of narrate this. So tell us about clean water over there.
Well, the irony with the Amazon is they're surrounded by water, but it's filled with bacteria, and it's the #1 cause of death for children under 5. So we have a water well ministry. It's a total separate boat that teams will add water wells at $6,000 extra, but we give the gift of clean, safe drinking water for the villagers. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to share tangibly. Here is the fact that you are loved. We're providing a basic need so that your children will be healthy and safe. And of course, it leads to greater poverty, not having health from illnesses, from waterborne illnesses. So it's just a great opportunity to tangibly give water to the thirsty in the name of Jesus.
How, just a naive question, because I've never been a part of an effort like this. How deep do you have to drill? Is it pretty easy to put in a water well?
300 feet is the max that we can drill, but the water table is fairly accessible, usually within, I would say, 150 feet. We hit water before, but to get good water, I would say typically 150, 200 feet deep.
And explain how this is really life-saving, because there's diseases in impure water.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, the ironies are surrounded with water, but it's killing them. And the irony more so is the river rises and falls about 40 feet a year. And when the water's low, they may have to walk a mile from this village on a hill to get water that's really bad, because the more consolidated the water gets, the more disease-ridden it is.
Sure.
So in the dry season, they're even sicker. And so they don't have to make that long trek to get water that's going to make them sick. They have it right there in their village.
What is, I know you've been doing this for several years now. What is your favorite memory or most powerful memory of why you do what you do?
That's a hard question, Jeff. It's like which child, emphasize. I think it would be summarized well in a story. So about a year and a half ago, I was in Palmetto, Florida, speaking at a church. 75-year-old Juanita Larson was sitting there, had just lost her husband, had been a caregiver really for the last 17 years with her mother, her mother-in-law, and then her husband for like the last 7. And her whole life was centered on taking care of people. So here she is sitting in church and wondering what her purpose is. She's grieving the loss of her husband. And she hears about this opportunity to all-inclusive cruise down the Amazon. And something in her heart resonated, and at 75-year-old widow, she's signing up. And she got so excited, her and a couple of friends donated some water wells, and so she went. So I had to call her after she got back. Said, well, why don't you tell me about your trip? She said, oh, it was absolutely wonderful. I want to go back so bad, but my knees are so bad, I can hardly get up the stairs of the boat. And I'm torn. I want to go, but I feel like I might hinder the team. And I said, well, let's pray about it. And I've never had this happen, but we prayed right there on the phone for God to give her clarity and to heal her knees. And she calls me a week later and she said, Steve, I'm going to go in July. She said, you won't believe this, but when you prayed for me, my pain in my knees went away immediately. And I've never had that happen. I've prayed for many people and I've seen it happen in time, but never instant over the phone. And she said, not only that, I know you've got a trip in January that you need more people. I'm going to go on that one with you too.
Wow.
So we hadn't drilled the water well she had donated yet. I call our director in Brazil and I said, hey, we just had a donor jump on this trip that's in 3 weeks. If we can drill this well with her on it, let's do that. I said, but here's the deal. Don't do it just to be drilling a well. It needs to be a legitimate need because they'll understand. What I didn't know simultaneously in the depths of the jungle, that we have a pastor we work with that's in a larger town on the river. And someone comes to him and tells about this little village, Monte Cristo, which means Mount Christ. And he said, they are suffering greatly. They're small and they can't afford a well. Can you please get them a well? And then the pastor's like, I don't want to promise you. Well, let's pray about it. So the next day we're calling, hey, we want to drill a well, but does it need to be just one anywhere? And he says, do I? But the problem is he didn't know the guy. This is a town of probably 20,000 people. So he's got 3 weeks to figure out who this guy is. So he prays, God, help. Right when he prayed, this guy drives by on a bicycle. Hey. So he gets him, and then it was just a beautiful thing. So the crescendo for me, what just drove it home, because we say transforming lives on 2 continents.
Sure.
We transform villages with hope, with medicine, with water, but the people that go get more than they ever give. And I got to see her go up this hill, clay, slippery, muddy hill, traverse this plank across a body of water to one of the most beautiful villages I've ever seen. When I say beautiful, I don't mean aesthetically, the people. They said, we never dreamed. We thought we were too poor, too small. And when your boat pulled up, we thought it was a dream. And so it all comes to a head. I'm sitting on the boat looking at her crying and thinking, and the Lord just prompted my heart. A year ago she was crying in church without purpose. Now she's crying because her life is so filled with purpose and she's making a difference. And in fact, she's on the river, she's on her 4th trip right now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but Steve's got water in his eyes right now, just recounting this story. We're almost out of time, so I want you to talk to the viewer who is feeling called to help, and just a final thought or words of encouragement.
Okay. Well, first, thanks if you've listened this far to our story. I would say, first of all, if you're looking for purpose, the best way to find it is by finding it by serving God and serving others. And this would be a great opportunity to potentially do that. AmazonOutreach.org. We've got about 30 trips this year, and they could jump on and be the hands and feet of Christ. Secondly, if you can't physically go, or you believe in this, or you'd like to help, we're in the process of a capital campaign. We're building a boat, a base, and a budget over the next 3 years, raising $4 million. So there's information about that on our website as well. If they click on the Give button, click on Faith, Hope, and Love. They can see videos about the boat we're building. But this boat that we're building will probably impact about 10,000 more villagers a year and more transformation of Juanitas and villages like Monte Cristo.
Wow. Steve, you're so well spoken. I'm so glad God put this on your heart.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity to share this.
You bet. We're going to end with a website, which again is AmazonOutreach.org. The great Steve Trammell. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.